Hello there, you loose units, and welcome back to another episode of Spicy Boy Reviews. I'm, of course, your host, Andrew Iles. Hope you've been looking after yourselves, looking after each other, pulling your heads in and all that jazz. Here we are another week, another episode. Let's get straight into it. Today we are reviewing Last Night in Soho. A student fashion designer transport to the sexist, swinging 60s at night, dreaming of a better life while embodying an aspiring lounge singer. But not all is as it seems when ghosts of the past begin to haunt her and dreams become nightmares. Let's turn down the lights, crank up the neon for Last Night in Soho. That's right, that is a synopsis for Last Night in Soho, directed by Edgar Wright, who is known for directing a bunch of really cool shit. This film is an original story straight from his mind grapes, and yet again Eddie whisks us away for a nice little adventure. Our innocent outcast protagonist here, Ellie, is played by Thomasin McKenzie. Ellie has visions of her deceased mother. We find out that there's mental health issues in the family's past, and we're not exactly sure when she sees her mother if it's actually her mum's ghost or delusions of her own. Ellie is absolutely obsessed with the 60s, with a passion for fashion. She's accepted to the London College of Fashion, and she leaves her small town life to pursue her dreams in big bad London. As soon as she arrives in London, the city shows its true grubby, creepy and dirty colours. Crawling with sleaze, covered in chavs and chavettes. You can almost smell the stench of kebabs and second-hand Foster's lager on the sidewalk. Straight from the get-go, Ellie does not fit into the current time of 2021. She's immediately an outcast with her classmates, who quickly become the plastics from Mean Girls, or in this case, the Chanels. As they subtly tease her for her frigid and old-fashioned ways. Everyone's shallow, self-entitled, a really, really horrible person, so, Gen Zers. She decides to fuck this shit and leave her dorm that is a constant, drunken, drug-fueled party house. I feel your pain, Ellie. I had a lot of shared houses through my 20s. And she starts renting a room for an old lady at the top of her house in a creepy little room in Soho, straight out of The Conjuring 2. When she lays her head down at night for Betty buys, she is transported to the swinging 60s London in the body of an aspiring lounge singer. Here by the name of Sandy, the lounge singer is played by Anya Taylor-Joy because she's contractually obligated to be in every single movie that's released now. It's not a complaint, it's just a fact. Ellie is in her element here. It's her true heaven, the 60s. She's obsessed with it. Bright colours, exciting hustle, and opulence everywhere. The opposite of the current London that she's living in. Sandy is everything Ellie is not. Confident, a risk-taker, and the centre of everyone's affection/attention. Doctor Who shows up to promise Sandy the world, and looking absolutely creepy while doing it. Or maybe that's just Matt Smith's face, I don't know. Ellie's night transportations to the 60s start bleeding over into her personal life. She's becoming more adventurous and confident, but it doesn't take long for things to start to get a little bit creepy. She idolises the 60s, a period in the time that looks cool and all well and good, but, people who lived in any certain time periods will probably tell you things weren't all glitz and glamour and great. We just see the good stuff in pop culture and references and stuff like that. And the film explores that. There's always a grubby, filthy undertone of every decade, and the 60s was no exception. Things start to go tits up when ghosts begin to haunt Ellie during the day. Like she's a beacon for them to cross over from the fantasy/memory world into her daily life. Then the dream becomes a nightmare. And then that's when the film switches and goes full-blown horror. As aforementioned, the elderly landlord who Ellie is renting the room off is played here beautifully and very charismatically by my absolute favourite Bond girl of all time, Diana Rigg, who sadly passed last year in 2020. So I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is her last on-screen performance. And what a performance. She almost steals the show. I must admit though, the film does feel like it's split in two, like it's two different films, and it's probably intentionally, looking at the director. The first half is like a fantasy escapism for our protagonist, and you could, read it as a bit of a metaphor for mental health. But then the film turns into a full-blown thriller/horror with ghosts and stuff like that and hauntings, very much like Drag Me to Hell, just without the tongue-in-cheek humour. Then Just before the end, it becomes a detective whodunit. In all honesty, the film felt a bit too long, I'll be honest with that. It clocks in at about 2 hours here. I don't think it needed to be that long. I reckon an hour and a half would have been perfect. Speaking of long, the ghosts here look like the Slender Man, and there's a bloody lot of them. They look creepy as fuck. This is a different kind of horror film. It's much more stylized and creative and very Edgar. It's shot beautifully, looks like it's an adaptation of a graphic novel. There's some creative transitions, some clever angles and stuff like that, and neon lights a go-go. It goes without saying that the music in this film is absolutely stellar. 100% chef's kiss, mwah. Because we go to the 60s a lot in these flashbacks, whatever you want to call them, and it's really good music, and they're not what I loved about it, because I'm a huge fan of 60s music. I love the fashion and I love the music. It's awesome. They didn't use the usual culprits for the music here as well, like the 60s stuff you'd hear on any radio station. They went with some deep cuts in this one. Of course, we get a big twisty twist at the end, which can be expected with a thriller/horror. Which I kind of saw coming, but it was still pleasing and didn't take away from the film. There is a serious theme in this film that can be a little bit hard to swallow at times. There's a heavy theme of having a dream or an aspiring goal in life, and you're being swallowed up by the big city while following said dream or trying to make it in an industry that you're interested in. But the path that you want to take can be a test of your morals, and others will try and, sway you and use you for their own personal gain. Like, don't trust empty promises and be very, very wary of people. And if you're not careful, you could end up in a very compromised position. So it's kind of that path where you need to evaluate kind of what your soul is worth. The recent past of Hollywood, anyone? I liked the film. I thought it was really good. I love the Edgar's work. It was really, it's colourful, cinematic. But like I said, it was a bit too long. Didn't appreciate that. Could have been trimmed down a bit, I reckon. But because I was burnt out by the end. But hey, it was a bloody good film. It was pretty original and creative and really, really good to look at. The acting was great too. It was awesome. I was really looking forward to this film when I heard it was coming out. Big fan of the director, and here we are. But yeah, I do recommend it. I give it a thumbs up. Definitely watch it. It's really good. It's really good. Yeah, guys, write down below what your favourite Edgar Wright movie is. He's got a few. And of course, if you've made it this far into the episode, please give us a thumbs up, because your like and support keeps us going, because we love movies, and I assume so do you as well. And of course, don't forget to hit that subscribe icon, because we give out episodes weekly. And we will see you back here again next week for the next episode. And until then, stay spooky, kids.